When Terminator No Fate was first revealed, expectations were very high. The idea sounded almost perfect. A retro arcade action game based on Terminator 2, built with pixel art, old-school design, and a strong focus on nostalgia. The game was developed by Bitmap Bureau and published by Reef Entertainment, a studio known for working with classic arcade-style projects and licensed games. It was announced for PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo Switch, and marketed as a love letter to old, coin-operated machines from the late 80s and early 90s. From the very beginning, it is clear what the developers were aiming for. The game does not try to be modern, cinematic, or complex. Instead, it leans heavily into arcade design. Fast movement, constant enemies, simple mechanics, and pressure at all times. On the surface, this fits the Terminator universe quite well. Machines, chaos, explosions, and a world that never gives you a moment to rest. Visually, the game makes a strong first impression. The pixel art is detailed and clean, with dark environments full of metal, fire, and industrial structures, destroyed cities, factories, underground bases, and machine-controlled areas all feel fitting for the Terminator setting. The overall visual style feels like something that could have existed on arcade hardware decades ago, just presented with modern clarity. There is also a CRT filter available, which adds a vintage television look. While this filter helps sell the retro fantasy, it is limited to a single option, with no ability to adjust or choose alternatives. Once again, the idea is good, but the execution feels shallow. The story follows Terminator 2 very closely. You'll play as Sarah Connor, the T-800, and later, John Connor during the Future War against the machines. Most locations and story beats are directly inspired by the movie. The game does not explain much and assumes that the player already knows the film. For fans of Terminator 2, this familiarity can be enjoyable. For others, the narrative feels thin and fragmented. Many iconic scenes are missing or reduced to brief moments, which makes the story feel rushed and incomplete. The title, No Fate, suggests branching paths and meaningful choices. In practice, the story changes very little. There are a few decisions that slightly alter the ending or add a short extra section, such as the option to kill Miles Dyson at sight. These choices can technically extend the game and lead to different endings, but the differences are small. The core gameplay levels and pacing remain mostly unchanged. While this adds some replay value on paper, it rarely feels worth replaying the entire game for such minor variations. One of the biggest issues appears once gameplay truly settles in. The controls feel stiff and awkward, especially when aiming and shooting. Movement lacks precision, and combat often feels less responsive than it should. In intense moments, it can feel like you are fighting the controls rather than the enemies. This becomes especially frustrating during boss fights, where accurate movement and shooting are critical. Another controversial design choice is the constant time limit. Every level includes a countdown timer that cannot be disabled. This mechanic made sense in real arcade machines, where time pressure forced players to insert more coins. In a home gaming environment, it feels outdated and unnecessary. Instead of increasing tension, the timer often creates frustration. The player has no time to learn enemy patterns, explore the environment, or enjoy the visual details. You are always being pushed forward, whether it feels appropriate or not. Level design adds to this problem. Some areas allow backtracking, others block it completely, with no clear logic. Checkpoints feel unreliable and sometimes force the player to repeat large sections after a single mistake. Combined with uneven difficulty, this leads to repetition rather than satisfaction. Some sections feel unfair, while others feel strangely underdeveloped. The soundtrack is another weak point. Terminator is famous for its dark, tense, and iconic music. But the game often replaces this atmosphere with techno or metal tracks that feel out of place. The music is inconsistent, sometimes acceptable, often irritating, and rarely memorable. Instead of supporting the action, it frequently distracts from it. This feels like a major missed opportunity. Despite solid visual effects, such as explosions and weapon impacts, the overall experience feels uneven. The foundation is strong, but many design decisions hold the game back. What should feel like a powerful retro tribute instead feels like a project that did not fully understand when to respect the past and when to improve upon it. As the game continues, more problems become visible, especially during boss fights. Boss encounters should be the highlights of an arcade action game, moments that test skill and build tension. In this case, bosses look large and threatening at first glance, but the actual fights feel flat. Their movement is stiff. Attack patterns are limited, and battles often turn into simple endurance tests rather than exciting duels. There is little sense of danger or escalation, and most bosses lack personality or memorable mechanics. Instead of feeling rewarding, many boss fights feel tiring. Difficulty balance is another major issue. Some sections of the game feel manageable and even enjoyable, while others suddenly become frustrating without clear reason. Enemy placement can feel unfair, especially when combined with the strict time limit. In several moments, the player is overwhelmed by enemies coming from multiple directions, while the controls do not allow precise reactions. Because checkpoints are poorly placed, failure often means replaying long sections again and again. This repetition does not feel like classic arcade challenge, but rather poor pacing. One of the most disappointing aspects for fans is the handling of iconic movie moments. Many famous scenes from Terminator 2 are missing entirely or reduced to very short segments. Key locations and story beats that fans expect simply are not there. This makes the game feel incomplete, as if large portions of the film were skipped to shorten development time. The emotional core of the movie is almost completely absent. Instead of building tension and connection, the game rushes from one action segment to another. The T-800 character, despite being central to the Terminator identity, feels underused. His presence is limited, and his role lacks weight. The sense of protection, sacrifice, and emotional depth that made the film memorable is missing. The game treats him more like just another playable character rather than the heart of the story. This weakens the narrative impact and makes the experience feel hollow. Animation quality also becomes more noticeable over time. While basic movement is readable, many animations lack energy. Enemy reactions feel stiff, and some attacks lack visual feedback. Boss animations in particular feel outdated, with little variation or dramatic flair. Combined with the weak music, these moments fail to deliver the intensity expected from such encounters. The audio design continues to be inconsistent. Weapon sounds and explosions are serviceable and help sell the action, but they are not enough to compensate for the poor soundtrack. Music often clashes with the scene instead of enhancing it. Rather than building suspense or urgency, it becomes background noise or even a distraction. For a franchise known for its powerful audio identity, this is one of the biggest disappointments. The game also struggles with content pacing. The overall length is very short, and even with optional paths and multiple endings, the experience rarely exceeds 1 hour. While arcade games were traditionally short, they were designed around replayability and mastery. Here, the lack of meaningful variation makes replaying feel pointless. Once the player finishes the game, there is little reason to return, even for completion. Additional modes like Arcade Mode, Infinite Moji, or Boss Rush attempt to extend the lifespan of the game. Unfortunately, they do not change the core problems. The same controls, same enemies, and same design limitations remain. These modes feel more like padding than meaningful additions. They exist, but they do not solve the underlying issues. The Collector's Edition deserves mention because it highlights the contrast between presentation and substance. Physical extras such as a metal case, printed artwork, and memorabilia are well produced and clearly aimed at fans. On the shelf, the edition looks impressive, Sadly, the quality of the packaging far exceeds the quality of the gameplay itself. This contrast makes the disappointment even stronger. What hurts the most is the clear potential that was never fully realized. The visual style is strong. The Terminator license is powerful. The idea of a retro arcade Terminator game is excellent, with smoother controls, better music, smarter pacing, and more respect for the film's structure. This could have been a standout retro title. Instead, it feels like a project that stopped halfway. This is not a broken or unplayable game. It runs well, looks good, and delivers basic arcade action. However, it fails to evolve beyond its surface-level nostalgia. It copies the limitations of old arcade design without adapting them for modern home play. What once made sense in coin-operated machines now feels outdated and frustrating. In the end, the game sits in an uncomfortable middle ground. It is not bad enough to be ignored, but not good enough to be remembered. Retro fans may appreciate the visuals and the attempt at authenticity, but many Terminator fans will feel let down. The experience promises more than it delivers, and that gap is impossible to ignore. Terminator. No Fate is a reminder that nostalgia alone is not enough. Respecting the past is important, but improving on it is essential. This game chooses imitation over evolution, and as a result, it feels like a missed opportunity rather than a true celebration of a legendary franchise. If you enjoy honest, retro reviews, classic games, and no-filter opinions about old and new releases, follow us for more similar content.